Well, hello everybody and welcome to my 2024 book bracket. I did a video very similar to this for my sister's wedding where I made a slideshow, stood in the dark of my room, talked into a tiny microphone, and pointed with a hanger. We're doing it all over again for our 2024 book video. And unfortunately, I am currently not even finished with my reading. Today's actually December 30th, the day I'm filming this, and I still have to finish one book by basically tomorrow night, by midnight tomorrow. I'm in the middle of one right now, but I wanted to film this now because if I film it now, I'll actually be able to edit and upload this by Friday, and that's kind of my goal. If not even on January 1st, could be ultimately the biggest goal for me. So that's why we're filming this now. If by the time I'm done editing this, I finish the other book, I will insert how I felt about it when we get there. But anyways, let's get into the actual book bracket. Okay, so here's our table of contents. Starting with number 1, we have the introduction, or what we're doing today. Number 2, we have all the books I read. This is every single book I read all year. I'm going to go through the rating I gave it. I'm probably going to give you guys a very short review, if not no review at all. Depends on how I feel when we get there. Number 3 is going to be the eliminations, or the cuts on our book bracket. You'll get there. And number 4 is going to be the conclusion, which is the number 1 book of the year, in my opinion. Let's get started. Starting off at number 1, the introduction, basically what we're doing here today. And that is, when I sat down to try to think of a video that I wanted to do for my end of year book video, I was thinking about just sitting down and giving you guys a review, doing the whole shebang shaboo, and I decided, you know what? I'm going to make this fun. And so we are going to do a bracket, if you will. We're going to go through, do eliminations and all that kind of jazz. And in the end, we're going to have a number 1 favorite book of the year. A number 1. We're moving on to number 2. All the books I've read this year. Let's get started. Getting right into it. January and February. Wow, you could not see my face at all because of all these books. I split it kind of by when I read them. There's like kind of an invisible line here. I was going to go month by month, but that just seemed really annoying. Sorry, I'm on my tippy toes so you guys can see my face a little bit better. I was going to do it like January alone, February, like all of them by themselves, but I was like, there's just a lot of months I didn't read a lot of books, so we're all mixing together. Let's just get started. First book I read this entire year was Mr. Fixer-Upper, and I gave that a 4.5 stars. Then Happy Place, I gave also 4.5 stars. Behind the Net, I gave it 4 stars. Neon Gods, I gave 4.5. Butcher and Blackbird, I gave 5 stars. And Right Man, Right Time, I gave 3.5 stars. Those are all of my January reads. Moving to February, we have Like You Love Me, I gave a 3.5. Bride, I gave a 5 stars. There's a video of that. Betting on You, I gave 4.5 stars. Kiss and Don't Tell by Megan Quinn, I gave 4 stars. You Deserve Each Other, I gave 3.5. The Dead Romantics, I gave 5 stars. And then Love Redesigned, I gave 4 stars. Lots of 4 stars, but also lots of 5 stars. A lot of really good books between January and February. But ultimately, I'm picking my favorite from January and my favorite from February. And those are going to move on to the elimination rounds. My number 1 book from January is Butcher and Blackbird, everyone. Woo, yeah, woo. My number 1 from February is The Dead Romantics. As you guys can see, my cute little animations. Don't even ask me how long it took me to figure out how to add these on the thing. Don't ask, okay? Don't ask. Moving along, let's get on to March and April. There's an invisible line like right here, guys. This is March and this is April. So starting off in March, we read Things We Hide from the Light, I gave 4.5. Practice Makes Perfect, I gave 4. Check and Mate, I gave 4.5. There's a video if you guys want to watch that. Geekarella, I gave 4, and Happily Never After, I gave a 3.5. Also, I just realized that I haven't been telling you guys the authors' names. My bad. Sorry, I should have, but we're just going to keep going with that. I'm not doing it. And then in April, we read the entirety of the Naturals series. So that includes The Naturals, which I gave 4 stars. Killer Instinct, I gave 4.5. All In, I gave a 4.5, and Bad Blood, I gave a 5 star, and a little novella at the end, I gave a 4 star. In total, the series is a 5, but each book got their own rating because duh. Then we read The Rule Book, which I gave a 4 stars, Just for the Summer, which I gave 5 stars, Wild Love, which got 4.5, What Happens After Midnight, I gave a 3.5 stars, and finally, Love and Other Words, I gave a 4 stars. So I picked 2 books from April because I honestly really didn't like any books enough in here. I do know that I gave 2 books in March, 4.5s, but I wanted to pick the 5 stars the most because those are my favorite books from the entire year. And so those are the ones that I wanted to end up getting into the book bracket. So I ultimately chose Bad Blood and, of course, Just for the Summer. If you guys watched my reading new releases video I put out in April, those are the books that I read, or that was the one book I read from that video that genuinely like changed my life in many ways. So there's that. Anyways, moving on. We have May and June. This is kind of when I started to fall into a slump. So the books are a little bit less than the months prior, but we're going to move on. Again, kind of an invisible line right here, guys. Invisible line. We have Wildfire, which I gave 4.5. Then we have The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, which I gave 4.5 stars. Beach Read, I gave 4 stars. The Love Hypothesis, I gave 5 stars, but who is literally surprised? Lastly, but not least, we have Off to the Races, which I gave a 4 stars. We have our June reads. We read The Friend Zone, which I gave 3.5. Not in Love, which I gave a 4. We have Giant Days 1 and 2, which I gave both 4 stars. We have It Happened One Summer, I gave a 4.5, and Throttled, which I gave a 4 stars. My number ones from in here are The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, as well as It Happened One Summer. Moving along. July and August is when I fell into probably the worst reading slump I have ever been, literally ever. Basically, from the months of July till November, I barely read anything because I was in such a bad reading slump. So, not many books to talk about, but let's get started. In July, I read The Inheritance Games. I gave a 4.5. Nora Goes Off Script, I gave a 4 stars. A Novel Love Story, I gave 5 stars. Funny Story, I gave 5 stars. And then in August, I read Hook, Line, and Sinker and gave that a 4.5 stars. The 2 books I picked out of these that were my favorites were A Novel Love Story and Funny Story, because they were both the 5 stars and I wanted to pick those over Hook, Line, and Sinker. Because in August, the only book I read was Hook, Line, and Sinker. So, you know. Here we are in September and October. Not many books. I read only The Hawthorne Legacy in September and I gave that a 4.5 stars. And then in October, I read The Final Gambit, which I gave 4 stars. Wild Eyes, which I also gave 4 stars. And then finally, in that month, The Only One Left by Riley Sager, I gave a 4.5 stars. Boom. So from this bunch, my favorites were The Hawthorne Legacy and The Only One Left. In November, I read volumes 3 through 5 of Giant Days and gave them all 4 stars. I listened to the audiobook for Two Can Play and gave that also 4 stars. I don't know really how I feel about it. And finally, I read The Pumpkin Spice Cafe, which I gave a 4 stars. So my favorite from November ultimately is The Pumpkin Spice Cafe. I gave pretty much every book I read that month a 4 stars, but I felt like The Pumpkin Spice Cafe I just liked better than the others. But that's all I have to say. Finally, we've come to the last month of the year, everyone. And this month, I went off. Here are all the books that I read in December. Can you even believe it? I simply cannot. Starting from the beginning, our first book we read was The Cinnamon Bun Bookstore, which I gave a 4.5 stars. And then we read a bunch of books for the Reading Holiday Books video. If you guys watched that, shout out. You're great. So let's get started with that. First, we read Cruel Winter with You, which I gave a 4. Merry Ever After, which I ultimately settled on a 2 star. Then we read Indigo Ridge and gave that 4.5 stars. The Bodyguard, gave that also 4.5 stars. All by My Elf, which I gave 3 stars. Merriment and Mayhem, which I gave 3 stars. Then we read Only Santa's in the Building, gave that 3 stars. How My Neighbor Stole Christmas, I gave that 3.5 stars. I read Christmas Land and gave that 3.5 stars. Outside of the video, I did end up reading The Christmas Tree Farm by Lori Gilmore and gave it a 4 stars. It was really, really, really cute. And then our last and final book for the year is Assistant to the Villain, which is TBD because I haven't actually finished it yet. I'm about like 15% of the way into the book. I just have to finish it before the year is over. Basically, as soon as I'm done filming this video, I'm going to go try to finish that book because I have to finish it by tomorrow night. And, you know, just got to try to chug through. But those are all of our books. My favorite from December is Indigo Ridge. This one was so good. I'm even tempted to change my rating to a 5 stars because I cannot stop thinking about how much I want to continue that series, like, and how badly I want to continue that series. But anyways, okay, we've moved on to number 3, the eliminations. Let's get started on our book bracket, everyone. Here's how I set up my personal book bracket. So since there's 12 months, I know there was probably an easier way to go about this bracket, but for some reason, this is the way I decided to do it. I don't even know, guys. I don't even know. Starting with the first 3 months of the year will become one favorite. The next 3 will become one, then so forth and so on. Ultimately leading us to the number 1 book of the year, in my opinion, that I've read from the year, if that makes any sense. So let's get started with January, February, and March. To remind everyone of what our favorites were from these months, it is Butcher and Blackbird from January, The Dead Romantics from February, and Bad Blood, which is technically from April, but we're saying is from March. Okay. So the 2 finalists from these 3 are Butcher and Blackbird and The Dead Romantics. And our final out of the 3, our number 1 of these 3 reads was The Dead Romantics. I loved The Dead Romantics and would love to reread it, honestly. I loved that book so much. Moving along. Next we have April through June. We have April, which is Just for the Summer. May, which is The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. And June, which is It Happened One Summer. Our 2 finalists from this category is Just for the Summer and It Happened One Summer. Crazy, both of them have summer in the title. Don't know how that happened. But our ultimate number 1 from here is Just for the Summer. Next, we have July, August, and September. From July, we have A Novel Love Story as well as Funny Story. We're kind of just ignoring August. And from September, we have The Hawthorne Legacy. Our final 2 from here is A Novel Love Story and A Funny Story. Weird, they both also have story in the title. That's freaky. And our finalist out of this 3 is Funny Story. Our last 3 months of the year, we have October, which is the only one left, November, which is The Pumpkin Spice Cafe, and finally in December, Indigo Ridge is my favorite from the month. Will that change when I finish Assistant to the Villain? Nobody knows. At this point, I don't think it will, but I'll update you guys. I'll let you know. Our semifinal 2 from this category is The Only One Left and Indigo Ridge, and our finalist from these 3 months is The Only One Left. I'm between wanting to put Indigo Ridge there, but we're going with The Only One Left. Let's get to the semi-finals, everyone. So we have January, February, and March fave from those 3 months is The Dead Romantics. And then April, May, and June is Just for the Summer. And the winner from these 2 is Just for the Summer. From July, August, September is Funny Story up against The Only One Left, which is from October to December. And the semifinal winner of that was Funny Story. The funny part, I think, about these 2 being the finalists for the number 1 book of the year for me is that I think both of these are probably my favorite books from the entire year. And putting them up against each other was so difficult. I literally had such a hard time even thinking of which one I liked more than the other. And ultimately, I went with, drumroll please everyone, Funny Story by Emily Henry. Let's get a quick look at the full book bracket. I will move my big old noggin for you. Here is my final book bracket. I will put a better, visual looking one on the screen for you guys to also look at for a second. I think I did a pretty good job being very objective and trying to keep it as fair as possible for all of the books. I tried to pick as many of my 5-star reads from all of the months individually as I could because, of course, all the 5 stars are my number 1s of the year. But overall, I think that this went very, very well. I'm back. Hello. Okay, everyone. We have come to the end of our 2024 book bracket video. I am now seeing spots from the projector thing, the light of the projector is I can't even see. It's insane. I feel pretty good about Funny Story being my favorite book from the year because honestly, it's one of the books I continue to think about even to this day. Miles was one of my favorite book boyfriends And I just overall think that book was so, so good. I definitely would love to reread in 2025. I'll be making an entire 2025, or I guess it would be end of 2024 reset video for you guys. So that's probably coming sometime next week, where I'm basically going to reset like my Notion, get ready for the new year, and just get everything all neat and tidy for you guys. So that'll be where I talk more about my reading goal for 2025 and kind of go through some of my stats from 2024, because I'm still currently trying to compile that all. Goodreads, I will honestly say, is probably one of the shittiest platforms. They just like doesn't work very well for me all the time, but I'm trying to get it to work for me and update and do all the things that I want it to do. But I will see you guys in the reset video, probably coming to you next week sometime. And until then, thank you guys so much for watching. Comment, like, and subscribe down below, and don't forget to turn on those post notifications so you get a notification the next time I post. I'll see you guys in the new year. Toodles! Can you even believe it's going to be 2025? That's crazy.